Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. I see everyone is coming in. Give it another second. I think that's everyone from the waiting room. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to first introduce myself. I know some of you, but other names I'm not familiar with. My name is Jan Osting. My pronouns are she, her. I'm one of the nursing faculty here at CUNY SPS. And I'm absolutely thrilled and honored to be able to welcome you to our Queer Joy and Wellness event, featuring our amazing student speakers and our keynote speaker, Teak Milan. This event, as you know, is part of the CUNY SPS 2024 Student Leadership and Development Conference Week. And we are just thrilled that you are attending. And I wanted to, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Teak a little bit more thoroughly later. So Teak, I just want to say hello and welcome to you informally now, and then we'll introduce you in a little while. And for the moment, I just wanted to introduce Amarna. Amarna is our inaugural president of the Pride Club. There's Amarna Williams, our inaugural president of the Pride Club. Now Amarna is serving as the meetings and programming co-chair, and she is a member of the class of 2024. We will be so sad to see Amarna go because she is truly an amazing, special person. She's graduating with a master's in disability services in higher education. And we have been extremely fortunate to have her as our LGBTQIA plus research college assistant here at CUNY SPS this year. And we're very excited to have her here. So without further ado, as I mentioned, I'm going to turn it over to you, Amarna.
Thank you so much, Jan. That was so sweet. Thank you. Yes, I have been here for a little bit as the Pride Club president, co-chair, many things. But I'm here today to discuss student queer joy wellness with you all. And I'm here with a colleague, friend, Pride Club co-chair member, amazing person, Christian Eduardo. If you want to say a little bit about how your time has been here at CUNY SPS and your major, that'd be great.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Christian Eduardo. I'm actually originally from Mexico, and I have been living in New York for around 9 years. My pronouns are he, him, él. My major is information systems, and to be honest, it has been great to be at CUNY SPS, receiving actually a lot of services from mental health, helping about adapting to all the online process. And also when I hear about the CUNY SPS Pride Club, I was very excited. And like meeting other students with a different range of ages and being part of the LGBTQ plus community, like also looking to move towards a goal specifically academically, it has been like great.
Thank you so much. That's so amazing. I would like to begin with sharing our personal journeys, how have our experiences shaped our understanding of queer joy and resilience within our community. I also wanted to note that if anyone else within our CUNY SPS family would like to be part of the conversation, please raise a hand or let us know in the chat. So Christian, how have your experiences shaped your understanding of queer joy and resilience within our community?
It is a really good question because before coming to the United States 9 years ago, I was in the closet. Well, I think, to be honest, that everybody knew, but it was hard for me like to speak openly about it, about being queer, about being a gay man, especially in Mexico. Like there's still like a lot of a stigma. It is an interesting dynamic because I think that in society, people say like, oh, we accept you, nothing is going to happen, you're safe. But in reality, like when with your close friends, with your family, like there's still like a lot of a stigma. Like, so when are you going to have, in my case, I'm a gay man, and when are you going to have a gay friend? When are you going to a girlfriend? When are you going to have kids? Like, why are you bringing like just other male friends and things like that? And I was also studying engineering back in Mexico. So it's a very male dominant environment. So I wasn't truly able like to experience my queerness openly. And I was always trying and very, very self-aware about like, how am I speaking? How am I moving? How am I dressing? Do I need to look a certain way? Do I need to behave a certain way? Not only on college, but also at work, when I'm going to interviews and all these things. So when I write here, I was like, okay, I think that I need to start shifting that, because also it was very interesting for me that seeing that New York City and in general, just United States being so multicultural, there were still also a lot of stigma. And I was like, okay, I think that I can be a voice of change about this. And I think that to start understanding queer joy and resilience is to start accepting your queerness. And it's a hard process, like, because I think that culturally it's rooted in us, like, to have different faces, to show different faces, to hide who we really are. But when you start accepting who you really are, when you start showing to the world who you see, who you really are, like, you start truly shining. Like, and people start like truly accepting you. Like, being queer, I love, because I start like, okay, I already had one earring, but I was like, I'm gonna have 3 earrings, and now I'm gonna start wearing long earrings. And it's interesting because it's interesting also how queerness is perceived in society, because for some people, they see me and they are like, of course you're queer. But for other people, they are like, no, you are not queer. Like, you cannot be queer. And I'm like, am I not hinting you enough with like my hair color, like with my long earrings, like, like all these things? Am I not giving you hints enough that I'm so comfortable with my queerness and who I am, and I think that this really talks about more about other people, how they are feeling uncomfortable about this whole spectrum about femininity and masculinity, and how a lot of times people also find themselves like that they identify as queer. It's just that we want to be labeled so hard that it's like, no, I cannot be queer. I cannot show feminine energy. I cannot show masculine energy, and all these things. So I really think that to really understand queer joy and resilience, it's also really understanding who we are, where we came from, really knowing the story of the LGBTQ plus movement. A lot of things happen, especially here in New York City. It's very important. And also personally with HIV, like, also really knowing the struggles that we have been through, and that we are still facing a lot of barriers, not only here in the United States, but across the world. And remember that being queer is also truly a fight, that we are not fighting just for ourselves, for our existence, but also we're fighting for all the queer people around the world. And it's very, very important to remember that, especially in college, because people from all around the world is coming to college. A lot of times probably they were rejected. A lot of times probably they were persecuted because of who they were in other countries. So we need to really remember that if we want, like, to really create spaces where we can be fully queer, where we can be inclusive, when we want to welcome everyone, is truly remember our roots, knowing our fights, and truly like embracing. I think that this breaking this paradigm about femininity, masculinity, like really embracing who you are, like having this compassion, this love about like, there's no right or wrong way to be queer. There's no right or wrong way to be lesbian, transgender, or gay. Is like, be comfortable with who you are and just show to the world the way that you want to be.
Yes, definitely. I love what you said about about being comfortable and just owning who you are and being able to share that with the whole world, and especially with our community here at CUNY SPS. I feel it's very welcoming. I feel it's very inclusive, and we welcome each other with open arms. So I love to see that amongst my other my peers. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of a successful student-led initiative that made a significant impact on its community or beyond? It could be a club, it could be a like your day-to-day, anything that has led a significant impact in our community.
I would say that pride clubs, just in general, before CUNY SPS, I was also in CCNY. Pride clubs, I think that people really diminish the impact of pride clubs. I think that a lot of times people think that, oh, pride clubs are like, uh, queer people have a lot of spaces, like they have bars, they have all these things, but it's not really true. Like we don't have sober spaces. We don't have spaces where we can like just be us as students, learn from one each other, hear from one each other, like connect like on a personal level, like share experiences and being vulnerable, because I think that being a student is being very vulnerable. It has a lot of limitations. It has a lot of barriers. Like it's very demanding being a student. And pride clubs, like especially because are student led, it really create this unique space where you see that other students are also like having hard times, and still they are really fighting and they are really like contributing to create these spaces for other people, because they know, like like I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one queer people here, and I want more other queer folks to be here and feel comfortable and feel welcome, knowing that we are together here. And I think that that has a huge impact, because I feel that a lot of times, especially in college, if we don't have pride clubs, we can feel very isolated. I think that if we don't have these queer initiatives in colleges, yes, we can feed in different other clubs, in other different roles, but it kind of still resonate with what we have been doing for so long. Like we need to hide our queerness. We need to hide who we really are. And with pride clubs, we can show our true, real potential. And I love about this because this really translates not only academically, but it translates also in a positive impact on mental health. It become as a support, and even people you know people through pride clubs that become your family, that become your support, and you know that you're not alone. And I think that that's so important for people in college, knowing that they are not the only ones, that we are not the only ones, that there's people struggling, that there's other queer people, and that I think that one of the key components is that there's people in college that you don't need to explain everything, because queer people understand other queer people, and in other spaces, no, there are so many questions, and it's like there are always people coming and asking like, but what about this? What about gender? What about transgender? What about this? And what about that? And what about, well, and it's always like these questioners on our sexuality and our gender, how do we behave. And in queer pride, in club, as the SPS Pride Club, I think that we create these spaces where we can be ourselves, when we can have a breath and be like, okay, finally, I can be myself. There's no explanations. I can truly, and it's really connected with the first question. Like, I can like be, like foster my resilience, and I can be and express my queerness in its totality.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I definitely think that the Pride Club here brings joy and like resilience and well-being, everything that this workshop is stepping on and highlighting on. I definitely feel like just by showing up at Pride Club in any way, in any form that you are, we definitely just accept people as they are in that moment and don't ask like all these different questions. It's just whoever you are is whoever you are, and that's amazing, and we welcome that. Yes, someone in the chat mentioned that Pride Club is a beautiful space to be in. Yes, definitely. I agree with that. Yes. The next thing I would like to discuss is considering the importance of support systems, especially for younger members of the LGBTQ community, what role do you think mentoring plays in fostering queer joy and resilience?
I think that it's very important. I think that there are different. I mean, I'm not as young as I used to be, but and I have had like so many experiences, and I wish that there was, when I was younger, someone who could guide me or told me like, like yes, being queer is amazing, and being queer like is one of the most formidable things that is gonna happen in your life, and you are most of the most unique things in this universe. But also like I think that a lot of times you don't have someone who can talk about like about love, about relationships, about like how to navigate your queerness at job, like about microaggressions, discrimination. Like a lot of times you navigate all these things by yourself, and it's like, am I the only one who is suffering all these things? And you know, like, and you look around, and it's interesting for me because people think I have heard this a lot of times, like, oh, gay are invading, like, or everyone is becoming gay, or everyone is becoming part of the alphabet, and all this like really like hate toward the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm like, that is not true. In most of the spaces that I work, I'm the only one that I am, and I cannot talk with anybody about the issues that I'm facing. And so I think that mentoring and creating spaces to talk with younger folks about all the challenges, and also like really talking about how to be safe, how to create safe environments, how to ask for support, how to ask for help, not to wait until the end, and also knowing that not because you're queer you need to be perfect. I think that also we have created this idea that because you're queer you need to be perfect, that regardless of what are you gonna work, regardless of what are you gonna academically or professionally, like what are you gonna do, that you cannot show like your vulnerability, that you cannot cry, that you are so strong. And I think that that's not really resilient, that is touching more of toxic possibility, to be honest. Really resilience is really acknowledging that yes, you are gonna have hard moments, that you're gonna cry, and that's totally fine. And I think that that's why mentoring is so important, that really recognizing and telling people that it's like, you know what, as queer individuals, we are gonna face a lot of challenges, but I want you to know that you are not alone, that no, you are not by yourself. You went to a lot of things. I went to a lot of things. I went to a lot of suffering, but I don't want other queer individuals to go through the same. If you find yourself in a situation that you don't know the answer, that you make a mistake, like trust me, like as a queer individual, I will never judge you. I will be more focused on like, okay, let's find a solution about this. I know that there's like people that's gonna judge you. Like if we ask around, like probably 90% of the people are gonna judge queer people just immediately just because we are queer. So I think that mentoring young queer individuals, it's so important. And also like just sharing all the knowledge that we have, also sharing like the people that we know, like our connections, fostering these connections, and really acknowledging that the world that we are is not designed for queer individuals to thrive. And I think that mentoring, connecting young individuals to the right paths, and also like really supporting them, hearing them and meeting them where they are, it's very important.
I definitely agree with you on all points. I think that I found my best, well, not the best mentoring, but the ones that I have found so fruitful in even at a young age until now was part of pride clubs and part of being in the LGBTQ community. So much so that my pride club that I founded in high school, I was mentored to like really believe in myself and was given those like key characteristics to then in grad school form this pride club here and look how far it's come. Like this is amazing. So I definitely feel like mentoring can give young students or young people that boost of confidence and that boost of resilience that they need to succeed and need to keep going. I do feel like it can stick with you, even a little bit of like keep going, a little bit of enthusiastic from your peers and from your people who are older than you or people who are in your at your job, people who can give you those like life skills and that education that they've received, like pass that on to you. I definitely feel like that can instill in a young person like the things that they need to succeed. So thank you so much for sharing that. So then I'm saying so much. The next point that I want to make is the next question I want to ask is um considering, let me get that one already. Think about the LGBTQ plus activism and advocacy efforts. Can you share an example that has inspired you, and how do you think that's contributed to positive changes?
Yes, of course. And I hope I can do it super quick. When I arrived here, so I was here, no friends, no money, like a mixed immigration status. I was recently diagnosed HIV. I wasn't openly about being a queer gay man. I didn't know what to do. To be honest, I didn't know about any resources. I was like myself. I was like, and now what? Like, I don't know how to start. I don't know where to go. I don't know. I wasn't able to speak English like as fluent as now. And I met Lorena Borjas. Lorena Borjas was a great activist from Queens. She used to work at Community Healthcare Network as a peer navigator, and she used to do a lot of outreach at night for the LGBTQ plus community, like condom distribution, connecting a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals with legal immigration resources, housing, and also supporting a lot of people who were engaged in prostitution. So I met her, and she was truly my inspiration to start the work that I'm doing, because she was never judgmental. She was always meeting people where they were. Like, she wasn't asking questions like, why are you doing this? Like, how did you end up like this? Like, why are you dressing this way? Why are you not doing this? She was always like, what do you need? Like, what do you need? What tools do I have that I can support you with? And that was very special for me, because also she was the first person who when she knew about my HIV status, about me being gay, about like all the intersectionalities of my identity on that time, she was like, everything is gonna be fine, and I'm here, and I'm going to support you in whatever I can. And I remember that and I was living in a shelter, and I remember that on Sundays she used to say, because she was from Mexico and I'm also from Mexico, and on Sundays she used to say, oh, like, come here, I'm gonna make soup, so you at least on Sundays are gonna have soup. And I was like, why are you doing this? Like, in my mind, I couldn't grasp why she was doing that. But on the long term, like, that translated to me, like, becoming really, I started like doing activism, like yelling at the streets, like protesting, like for LGBTQ plus and immigrant rights. And later I was like, okay, this is great, but I think that I want to go for more. So I started like doing more policy, legislation, advocacy, like on local, state level. And now I'm doing a lot of work, trainings on like across the United States in the anti-trafficking sector, but I'm always bringing that part that we don't talk about in gender-based violence, in homelessness, in substance use, in immigration. We don't talk about the LGBTQ plus community. We don't talk about queer folks. We don't talk about how all these issues impact so differently queer individuals. So I think that when queer individuals, we really support other queer individuals, it really has a long time impact. And it's so positive that I still remember she passed away during COVID. And I still remember like how she was supporting me, how she was so welcoming. And I think that she truly ignited the flame of me about like to support people, meeting where they are without judgment, and supporting them in the way that I can. And at the same way, like taking care of myself, because I think that it's hard to be queer in the world, but also like taking care of others and taking care of yourself is gonna make our work a better work, to be honest. And we need to never forget about that there's queer people that will take care of other queer people in this world.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate the stories that you told in that. And it's so beautiful to like reflect back on those moments with her. And I really appreciate that she was able to do that for you, and you were able to get this far, and here you are. And oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that again. We only have a few minutes until we get to the next one. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for hearing about our student speakers. And if anyone would like to say anything else quick in the chat before we move on to our keynote speaker. No.
I just, I,
Uh,
Yes.
ahead.
Oh, yes. I would just want to close like saying to everyone, like, if you are dealing right now with a hard situation, first know that you are not by yourself. That regardless if it's health, mental health, with your community, that there are a lot of resources for you. There's people that it's gonna support you, that is not gonna judge you. And I know that sounds very cliche, but trust me, like things are gonna get better. Things are going to get better. I'm not saying that tomorrow, I'm not saying that things probably are not gonna get worse, but, and it sounds very cliche, but things are gonna get better. So just try to hold on. The best that you could do today is wake up, take a sip of water, not even taking a shower, it's totally fine. You know, just by existing, it's more than enough. So thank you, everyone.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. I feel like that is a very key aspect that we want to stay with continuously. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I
I
agree.
love that. And yeah, absolutely, Anthony. I feel like I want Christian to be my mentor now.
Right.
I'm like ready. I'm like, yes, Christian, tell me everything. Oh my gosh. That honestly, that short, whatever that was, 20-minute conversation, I feel like that was a mic drop, like big time. Such an important conversation. Talking about that perfectionist tendency that we have to like present ourselves as these perfect people. How our support and mentorship systems are so strong. We focus so much on the disparities, the negativity. I'm in nursing, so I'm always focused on like health disparities. And when Anthony and Amarna and I were thinking about this event, we really wanted to move that focus to that queer joy, that queer wellness, resilience, all of that, because our community is so beautiful. I could cry because our community is so beautiful. Our history, our culture, nightlife settings, obviously, like we were talking about, but also the sober settings, the daytime settings, the pride clubs, all of that community is so important to our mutual aid, our taking care of one another. And as I'm a mom, and when I hear about like non-queer people raising queer children and they're so worried about who will ever love them, I always try to tell them, your child, you don't know this community yet, but your child has a big, beautiful community out here waiting for them. We're not their parents, but we feel parental towards them. You know what I mean? And so you should never feel like your child is going to be alone. There's this big, loving, strong, joyful community out here. So I really thank the two of you for that. I really am a little emotional after that. That was really, really beautiful. So thank you. And so we will have more time for questions. Were there any? I didn't look at the chat. Were there any urgent? Nothing right now. Okay. So without an introduction before, I want to make sure to take some time to introduce Teek now. So Teek Milan speaks and writes about intersectional leadership, transgender rights, and racial justice. He shares stories of his life and how his transgender experience has informed his views on masculinity, race, and the gender binary. A journalist for over a decade, his work has appeared on Mike, BuzzFeed, NBC, and CNN. He's also a strategic media consultant helping organizations and companies create detailed media campaigns that will engage diverse audiences in ways that are inclusive and authentic. Teek's TED Talk, A Queer Vision of Love and Marriage, is presented alongside his former wife, has over 1 million views, and has been translated into over 15 languages. Teek is a sought-after speaker. We've been seeking after Teek to speak with us for a while, and we're so thrilled that we're finally there. Who brings innovative and inspiring ideas to conversations about race, gender, and culture. He has spoken at Chicago Ideas Week, Summit at Sea, the Equity Summit, and countless conferences and events that are dedicated to moving the cultural needle towards one that is fairer and more inclusive. Teek also has local experience and was most inspired by his years mentoring LGBTQ plus youth at the Bronx Community Pride Center and the Hetrick Martin Institute in New York City, where he was able to witness firsthand the intersectional lived experience of gay and trans youth and how it's affected by social systems put in place to help them. Most recently, Teek was the senior media strategist and national spokesperson for GLAAD, where he used the media to call attention to the needs of the LGBTQ plus community, particularly transgender people of color. So thank you so much, Teek, for taking the time to be with us and with our students, faculty, community this evening. We're very, very grateful for your time. and
Awesome.
knowledge and wisdom.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So I know I just did sort of a formal introduction, but I wondered if there was anything that you would want to share about yourself as we're going into this conversation that might inform our conversation around, you know, our student empowerment or the queer joy theme or anything like that that pops to mind that I might have skipped over in my official bio.
Yeah, that was official.
That was official, right?
That was like my resume. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Exactly.
But first, thank you all
I'll be
so much.
posting the link to your resume in the chat. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for that introduction. So yeah, that's a lot of the work that I do, and I think more to add to that, just about myself and the work that I do. So I'm no longer a spokesperson, senior person at GLAD. I'm still, that's the GLAD family. Like I'm on assignment for them right now, but I'm not there in any official capacity. What I do right now, I do a lot of leadership and development coaching for organizations and corporations all over the world. And I'm also a storyteller. So I travel with the Moth. I don't know if anybody's interested or has ever heard of the Moth. Heard the Moth? In case we have a new book out, A Point of Beauty. My short story about my mother is in this book. And also at the end of our conversation, just give me like 3 minutes and I'll play a little snippet of the book for everybody, a snippet of my story for everybody here. So that's some of the work that I've been doing as a storyteller, and also working on how to create better, more inclusive work environments for people all over the world, right? So I think for me, as we're having this conversation, I was having this conversation earlier with a colleague, a lot of the work that I do is really heart-centered. You know, I try to go into I try to have these conversations. It's about the tactical things that we can do to be more resilient, to be advocates, to be activists, but also like how are we framing it in our emotionally? How are we showing up for each other? Like how do we center? You know, how do we be people of the people and not people of the profit or people of the empire, people of the machine? How do we kind of keep our heart in the work? So that's a lot of the things that I've been thinking about. And a lot of that has been inspired by, you know, my work as a storyteller, my work doing workplace psychology, and also as a man of faith, being a Black trans man of faith who was very involved in my church and do some ministry. All of these things have started to come together. So there's been an evolution in how I approach my work. And there's been an evolution in what I think about like wellness and joy and advocacy.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for bringing sort of the forest. I gave the trees maybe, and you kind of gave the forest, and I appreciate that. Because that really, to me, that sort of grounds you or locates you, you know, for me in my mind a little bit more. And I love that focus on heart-centered, especially with the theme of this conversation being, you know, the joy, the sort of less easy to quantify things, but the more important things about queer identity and activism. So our community, obviously here at CUNY SPS, is made up of a wide array of people, including staff, faculty, and of course, most importantly, students. We really would love to start this conversation talking about student empowerment in taking action. So in your experience, and keeping in mind that our students most of the time see each other virtually. Sometimes they do see each other in person, but a lot of our programs and coursework is virtual, remote. Yeah. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience, although they do come together in person a lot, as well as Amarna and Christian were saying too. What are some effective ways students can empower themselves to take action on issues that are important to them?
So some of the best ways to empower yourself, I think it's important for students. First, let me just tell you this, like student-run activism, student-run efforts in organizations has changed the world throughout history. You know, like every big movement that has shifted our culture has started with folks like yourselves. Kent State, you know, the Greensboro sit-ins, Tiananmen Square, Soweto, these are all students, right? So I think first taking into consideration that student-led movements and organization has a really rich history in the world. It has really been the seat of change. And I think that's important so that young people, and youngish people, students, right, understand their seat of power and what their locus of control is. Like you have a lot of power. You know, and I think there's a lot of messages that we get that try to disempower people who are students, people who are learning, people who are young, people who are on campuses. There are all kinds of information that's trying to disempower you. but it's important to understand what your power is. And I think that power is understanding like what is within like your locus of control, particularly if you're thinking about organizing and making a difference in advocacy, right? It may not be like I'm gonna get up here and I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna change every policy in the United States. Okay, big like yes, like have that big dream, right? But also understand what you can do. Like start where you are, use what you can where you with what you have, right? You can change what you have and you can change what you want with what you have where you are, and really understanding the resources that are in your grasp and starting there. So I think that that's the key to being empowered, to empowering students, is understanding that they have that power, right? And looking at the history of student-led movements, how it's changed the world, how it's changed campuses. And also, I think another way to be empowered is to call up that fearlessness. Now, I think it's probably easier said than done. Okay, but be fearless in going up against the machine, right? If the advocacy is looking internal, if it looks like within at CUNY SPS to say, you know what, we need to make some changes here, don't be afraid to make those changes, because if it wasn't for you students, there would be no CUNY SPS.
That's right.
We're in that. So knowing what that power looks like, you know, and also grounding ourselves again in the fact that student-led changes the world, that you have a place there. And I think that that's the first place for us to feel empowered, is to have that frame of mind and to dial in that internal power, and also looking at the resources that you have to shift the world around you, because that's how change starts. It starts kind of with that little ripple, you know. So think about how you can be that ripple, how you can kind of make changes within the world around you.
I love that. I really do love that, because especially in a day and age where we sometimes can feel, even as the previous conversation, we can sometimes feel very overwhelmed, right? We're in a pandemic environment, in a, you know, economic stress environment, a lot happening, you know, in terms of our local and global issues. It's
Yeah.
easy to get bogged down. At least I'll speak for myself. Easy to get bogged down in the negative things and think, oh, me doing this little thing is not gonna,
Right.
you know, make a difference. But I absolutely agree that students, you know, people are listening to you. They are listening to you because if we have any intelligence, we know that the students are the ones who are thinking the most cutting edge ideas, the most progressive, the most thoughtful in terms of the long term, because they hopefully have, you know, long careers ahead of them to make change.
Yeah, for sure. And
Um,
it's, you know, because you're in that learning environment. So like, don't be afraid to like this is the place to like really like build your intellectual muscle and your mental muscle. You're in the environment of learning on a regular basis. Like some of you are full-time students, you are full-time learning. So, you know, so like use that to your advantage and keep learning and keep pushing and keep being curious. That is why so much of our movements happens there, because it's an environment that's curating that innovation. And hopefully you're getting the support where it's not only curating innovation, but it's also curating like confidence and that fearlessness. I did like, yeah, you know, I can make a change here. Because I'm gonna tell you, because sometimes that feeling wanes as you get older. I'm just gonna keep it real. When you get out of seriously, when you get out of this environment where you're not learning and you're just working, right? And you're getting more and more, you know, you're having kids, you have a career, you got maybe, you know what I'm saying? This idea, this curiosity and this hunger for change starts to be replaced with like the need to survive and then be responsible. So this is the time. This is the time where you can, and that's it. Everybody's situation is different, but for a lot of folks, this is the time when, you know, they can really be a part of that change. Not saying you can't be later, but just take advantage of the space that you are in right now.
I agree. And I think my next question kind of builds on that, which is how do the educational institutions slash faculty slash staff, how do we better support students in their activism? Because there are faculty and staff on this Zoom as well, or who might be listening in the future as well. How can we better support our students in their activism and advocacy efforts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think maybe I have to answer that with a question. I think like, you know, first I'll always say it's important to, when we ask questions, when we're curious about something, it's important to ask questions that don't disempower people or invalidate their truths. We want to ask questions that kind of shake up our own truth, right? So like students, so faculty and staff may be thinking differently about a situation in the world than the students are. You know, there may be those gaps. So really thinking about, so being open to bridging that gap, What is that gap in knowledge? What is that gap in concern? Like, hey, I'm a faculty member. I'm not really concerned about these things that are concerning these students, right? So first I'm thinking about that. How do we bridge those gaps, right? Then I also think letting the students lead. Let these students lead, and also think about the privileges that you may have as a staff member and bring those privileges to their organization, right? What kind of access do you have? What networks do you have? What can you tap into to help these students move the needle a little bit? I think that's one of the most important things that staff and faculty can do is let the students lead, but jump in there and see where you can fill in those gaps with the privileges that you may have as someone of a different generation or someone who is on staff who has access to different things, right? Because you're closer to the systems. Even if the systems are the ones that are up for critique and are up for change, but you're the one that's in the system. You got these who are trying to change it. So you're in there. What can you do in there? And again, and the same thing goes for faculty and staff. What is your locus of control? What fearlessness are you going to bring to the change?
Oh, I love that. I really love that. It's true, though. I mean, I think, fearlessness and queer identity in a certain way do go hand in hand. On a good day. On a bad day, fearfulness is there too. But the fearlessness to live and celebrate ourselves and be true to our identities in, every single day, in every single context, I feel like that is something that is so incredibly beautiful about our community. And that if we can harness that, it's so powerful, like you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think, a lot of the conversation that we're having, we're talking about like the resilience and the fearlessness and, these things, but let's just be very clear, particularly when we're thinking about this as wellness and joy, right? As queer and trans people, we are not the sum of our tragedies. We're not. We are not just our resilience. We are not, right? To your point, we are models of possibility. I truly believe that how queer and trans people exist, how we define ourselves for ourselves, how we create families, like you were saying earlier, like, having queer kids. I've been out since I was 14. I came out as a lesbian when I was 14. I came out as a trans man when I was 25. I've been in queer community has raised me, and I had some of the most loving, the best people. I felt protected. I felt loved. Right. So the way that we create community, the way that we define ourselves for ourselves, it is a model of possibility for humanity. Right. And we can't lose sight of that. We're not just a fight. You know what I'm saying? There is something brilliant about the people that we are. And when we situate ourselves in that, that's when that wellness, when that joy comes up. When we say, what, it's not just about this protest. It's not just about my tears. It's not just about everything I had to lose or everything I had to go through to be queer. It's about the family that I make. It's about these clubs that we have. You know what I'm saying? It's about walking out the door every day saying, I'm going to look however I want to look, and I'm going to love who I want to love. And you're just going to have to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people can't do that. There's a brilliance in there. I think like the journey of being, for me as a trans man, I think the journey of being trans has made me a better person. You know what I'm saying? I think it's like, for me as a man of faith, I think it's made me closer to God. I think I'm living my life on a higher frequency. And I think the journey of gender, everybody has it, right? Even like our cishet brothers and sisters, our cishet siblings, they have it too, but they don't even know, but that is theirs to have control over. And if they did, they would be better. They would be better off.
That's true.
They started to understand that your journey of gender and who you are in your body and in your spirit belongs to you. It doesn't belong to your doctor who put the F or the M on your birth certificate. It doesn't matter if, how your parents raised you. It's really up to you. Right. So I think that that's so important too, because too often when we talk about our queer and trans experiences, all we're talking about is the hard parts of it. But me personally, my queer and trans experience, there's been hardships, but this is a love story. It is a story that is full of love and family and just amazing like memories and just, it's just been awesome. So I don't want us to ever lose sight of that. Really, for the queer and trans folks on this call, like, it's a beautiful life. It really, really is.
That is so lovely. I'm feeling queer joy attending this event, and I really appreciate you sharing your message with us. Honestly, you kind of started to go into this, but from your perspective as a Black transgender man, is there anything specific as any part of your, intersectional identities, obviously, what strengths do we bring to social justice movements, and what strengths might you feel like you or other Black transgender folks might bring to social justice movements. And, I'm a white person, cisgender person. And, I fear that, and I know that I've been part of a lot of racist, transphobic, queer experiences, right,
Yeah.
over the years, because they exist.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think that, that's important. Like, yes, I love being queer. I love my queer community, my queer people, but we're not perfect. Okay. Just because you're queer does not mean that you can't be racist, or you can't be transphobic, honey, because I've seen it. I've seen it all in community. That's going to happen because people are going to people. You know what I'm saying? So I don't, get involved in any movements thinking that these isms are not going to be a part of it, but it's just how you react to it. Are we going to use this as a place of learning? How are we going to learn and have a deeper understanding of each other? Because a lot of that just comes from fear. And I think it's and it's quick, like, we have to really kind of, open up the circle and start having more stories and, sharing our experiences with each other so that we have a deeper understanding of the complexity of the human experience, right? This, like, racism, transphobia, homophobia, all of that shit is like cis white heteronormative patriarchy. And as queer people, we are supposed to be dismantling that just by proxy of how we exist. Right. So we can't use like the master's tools to tear down the master's house.
Audre Lorde, yes.
Right. So we have to be different. Now, what I think everybody, Black, trans person, cis white person, I think we all have something very valuable to bring to these movements. And I think the value in that is not feeling guilty about being this, that, or other, because guilt is not useful. Only your solidarity is. So figuring out what is the uniqueness to my story as an individual. What are the unique resources that I have that I can bring to this fight, that I can bring to this community or to this organization, and give it up. So I know for me what my Black and trans experience can bring. As a Black man who is in New York City, who's had the privilege of living here, who's been in community for 20 years doing this work, like, I'm giving it right now. This is what I can give. You know what I'm saying? So it's really up to the individual. And I think something that everybody has to give is their story. Christian, he gave his story. Everybody has a story to give. Everybody has a story that we can build on. So I think all of our identities is important. And also, I think what's another framework that gives me joy and that I work from is to understand that we are layers, we're not fractions. Right? Of experience and identity. And what's important, if we want to be change in the world, what's important is that we create environments where people feel like they are safe to be layers, that they can bring all of their layers. And Christian was talking about that. Like, I was really listening to what they were saying, what he was saying. And one of the main thing that I took away from that was having a space where people can be their whole selves, where determined and autonomous. And people in his life created that for him. So how do we do that? How do we create that for each other? And that's the beauty about being queer. We create that for each other all the time, not even knowing it. You know what I'm saying? When I worked at the Hetrick Martin Institute, it's the home of the Harvey Milk High School, which is the only all LGBT high school in the country. And some of these kids who were like queer and trans, and non-binary, they couldn't be that at home, but they could be that here. We created an environment there. So this kid come in and you say, okay, well, my pronouns are they, and my name is, I don't know, unicorn. Okay, unicorn. Just put, go do your math homework. You know what I'm saying? Like, we create an environment where you are just who you are. We're going to love you and accept you for who you are. So I think that's one of the key things when it comes to organizing in movements and the community and wellness and joy.
I love that. Yeah, that you reminded me of something that when I do trainings with healthcare providers, I try to remind them, you want to include case studies, for example, about LGBTQIA plus people. Let's broaden that from being something about HIV or STIs or or substance abuse or depression. Let's broaden that and talk about a family with two dads whose child broke their leg. Nothing to do with LGBTQIA plus identities, because we have this quick pathologizing that occurs, in the healthcare world when you connect those, healthcare conditions or whatever you want to say. And I think when you teach on those case studies, you automatically build those associations for the learners.
Yeah.
Whereas you're not building in the more sort of day-to-day existence of, queer people and
that further perpetuates stereotypes that that creates healthcare disparities.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? This is how you start to like build and start to fortify unconscious biases in people who are going to be in charge of the care of other people. You know what I'm saying? That's why, like, for me, when I go to my healthcare providers, people don't know I'm trans unless I tell them. I make sure I tell them. You know what I'm saying? I disclose every time I'm a trans man. I want you to know. I go, listen, I hurt my shoulder. I'm at PT. I'm trans. So that like, it's not like a transgender shoulder. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
But I want this healthcare provider to know that you are in front of a living and healthy transgender person is in front of you, right? To start to like to shift that, pathologize it, because I know that's what happens in these academic institutions, and that's something that needs to change. And again, this is what student movements are for, because students can see that and say, you know what, this shit ain't right. What are you teaching me here? What you're teaching me is not right, and shift it, and it will shift. Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think you're again leading me to the next question of thinking about how have you navigated in your activism, how have you navigated some of the challenges or opportunities of being a visible, out queer person? We speaking for myself, I have a privilege of being an out queer person wherever I go, in my workplace, obviously in my workplace, in my family life and that type of thing. How do you navigate some of those opportunities and challenges of being out at the physical therapist?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, like I said, I don't always out myself. Like my landlord, he doesn't know, but he doesn't need to know. You know what I'm saying? So, but for me, I have the I don't want to call it a privilege, but and I don't want to call it passing. A lot of people don't know I have the privilege of people assuming that I'm cisgender. Because people assume I'm cisgender, there is a level of autonomy that I get. I mean, I still am a Black man, right? But a lot of people don't know that I'm trans, so I don't get treated as trans. So I just want to name that because, navigating this world can be much harder for my non-binary siblings, right? Who are always read as trans or non-binary and having to deal with that. So there is a level of safety that I have, right? But within community, I just really try to take advantage of every opportunity I have to tell my story and to talk to folks, because I know that it means something to folks. You know what I'm saying? So I really don't, I mean, as I've grown in my career and gotten older and have more responsibilities, I don't do a lot of stuff for free anymore, like I used to, but I still make sure I do it. And I still will do like free things for smaller organizations that I think are important, for youth-driven organizations, because I know that this little hour, 2 hours that they spend with me can change someone's life, because I know it changed my life. You know what I'm saying? I remember the first time I saw a trans man changed my life, and I just saw him. You know what I'm saying? I had no idea. I was like, oh my cool shit. I'm me, I'm you. And I had no idea that trans people even existed, but it was just him being there and being himself. And I think that's important for us. So when it comes to like our joy and our movement, you don't necessarily have to be an organizer. You don't have to put all the blood, sweat, and tears into movement. Sometimes just existing is enough to be a model of possibility and to create some change for folks. Also,
I think that's so true. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying also, just as far as like my career, my visibility, I could be more discerning. So a lot of times I do say yes, but there are times when I say no. I'll give you an example. In January, I had a producer from the Dr. Phil show call me and said they wanted me to come on the Dr. Phil show to discuss the ban on transgender healthcare in Texas. Right? I was in Texas. Ironically, I was in Texas at the time. So like, okay, I'm going to do it. But I said, let me reach out to some of my colleagues. So I reached out to Chase Strangio. He's the
yes.
lead attorneys at the ACLU, good buddy of mine. So I'm like, Chase, man, should I do this? He was like, I'll pay you not to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because when we started to dig in, it was a setup. It was me, the only trans person, in 3 really awful anti-trans like cycles. Like the person, like the one person who leaked a young person's medical records and made this child into this monster. It was like her and then 2 other doctors, one who's gotten their licensing taken away, and me. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing to be really careful about. So there are places in which I can be in community and bring my identities and navigate these spaces and give, but there are people who are going to want to take and who are going to want to manipulate. who wanted to set us up to be like, see, look at these crazy trans people. They can't, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not doing that. And I think that's another thing for people to really understand too, is that if you are creating movements and you want to have difficult conversations with people, have some boundaries. You know, I am not going to hold court with and be on stage with people who are committed to thinking that I'm a monster. And thinking that we're monsters. If that's your commitment, baby, then you do that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's way more people who love me than not, and there are way more people in the movable middle who are willing to have actually good conversations, who want to understand the queer and trans experience. And there are people who are committed to not doing it. And I'm telling you all, right, to keep you safe, stay out of those spaces. Let them be over there. They're on the wrong sides of the future. Straight up, those people are going to die out. So let them die on that hill. Right? You don't have to keep going. And this goes for your family too. Okay. If you got, racist, transphobic uncle who's just committed to that, well, then you let his ass stay racist and transphobic right over there. It is not your job to change the hearts and minds of bigots and hateful people.
Amen.
Your job is to love yourself and to love the people who love you back. Your job is to work with people who are open to learning. Our job is to change bigots. And I think too often we get put in this place where we always have to do all this heavy lifting, all this emotional labor, all this intellectual labor. For what? For what? You don't have to like me. You really don't. And I think that we need to keep that mindset. There's enough love to go around that we have to keep begging people for it. Let's not do that.
I agree. That is so true. And it's something I often talk to my colleagues and students about, especially when it comes to people doing speaking engagements. Here we are rolling around back towards June again and Pride Month. And, a lot of my queer students talk to me about, I got asked to speak about my, being queer at work, speak at work. And my first question always to them is, how much are they going to pay you for that?
First.
How much are they going to pay you for your lived experience, your labor setting that up, your emotional exhaustion probably afterwards telling your story and your coming out story or whatever it is they want you to do. It is time for organizations to compensate queer people for sharing our experiences,
because they have the money. They have a budget. Don't let them lie to you. They have a budget. They have a leadership and development budget. They have budgets, particularly these larger organizations or corporations. Don't let them fool you. They have it. And get your money. Get your money.
I totally agree. And I hope that my wonderful students on this call especially are hearing that and how valuable you are. Even that conversation that we just had, the value that our students just brought to this event, is so high. And I hope you realize that about yourselves, that, your experiences, your lives are so valuable to people that you should be paid for them. So just to change, we have about 10 minutes before we're going to open it up to Q&A. So just to change sort of to activism in challenging times, if you want to call it that as a heading. Can you sort of share about how you see the role of activism evolving, maybe this year pre-election, or, as we're moving forward, or,
all of activism,
obstacles in activism type thing?
I mean, activism is always, I think activism is always, there's a through line, right? That we've seen through history. Activism, there's a formula to it, right? There's the protests, there's the organizing, there's the peaceful protest, so there's all of these like formulas in how we organize and how we fight and how we do activism, right? And I also think that using social media as your activism is really important too. Like I always tell people to use social media, use your TikToks and Instagram as a tool and not a toy, right? This is a really great way for you to build momentum, for you to get your ideas out there, to share with like minds, to build networks. So like really be intentional about what that looks like hashtag the hell out of things. There's so many tools. There's so much technology right at your fingertips that you can do so much organizing. So I think that that's really important too. And on the other part of that is making sure that there's an intersectional approach. Right, again, to quote Audre Lorde, right? There's no single issue. She said something like, we don't live single issue lives, right? You know what I'm saying? So there's layers. So like, if we're going to be talking about like LGBT rights, we also have to be talking about reproductive rights. We also have to think about disability. We have to think about all of these things at once. So does that make the job harder? Maybe, but I think it makes it, for me, it makes it more impassioned. For me, it's more curious. You know what I'm saying? Because it's all of us or none of us. And that's what we, and that's really important right now, because they're coming after all of us.
Absolutely.
The empire is coming after all of us. Like it's just one thing after trans people, reproductive rights, climate change, it's all of it. And it's all connected. There's racism all in it. There's misogyny all in all of it. Even when we're talking about climate change and environmental justice, there's so much anti-Blackness that's happening even in those spaces. So it's
absolutely
right. So it's really animal rights. I was just reading this article today on like the white savior complex when it comes to like vegans and animal rights, right? And how they take a lot of their like talking points and strategies from these really conservative, like right-wing people. It's very, very nuanced. So with that being said, if you're looking at activism and advocacy as like something that you want to do, you could do it full time as like work, or if this is something that you're really passionate about, do your research, like learn. Read these articles, talk to people, read your books, so that you can start to see how intersectional it is. And then you could take, again, your locus of control, your knowledge, and fill in those gaps. But have that intersectional approach, and having that intersectional approach first starts with knowledge. So arm yourself with as much knowledge as you can. Learn, read, network, talk to people. Don't just get out there and just start doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Take your time, learn about what's going on.
Yeah. And how would you, or how do you as an individual, or what advice would you give in terms of how do you take care of yourself as an activist if you start to feel that being overwhelmed, disillusioned in the current political and social climate? Either how do you take care of yourself, or what advice would you give to others?
The simplest advice I could tell you to do is stop, rest, say no. Stop, rest, and say no. That's what I do. When I'm done, I am done. Baby, I am done. There's no more social media. I'm going to order me a burrito. I'm going to put some sci-fi on, and I am chilling, and I don't want to talk to nobody. And sometimes I'll do that for a couple days. And I have to work on not feeling bad about rest, right? Because what I always preach is that rest is a part of productivity, that self-care is revolutionary, particularly for queer folks and queer folks of color, for us to be able to rest our bodies and rest our minds. It is easier said than done, but be intentional and take your time. Rest. If you got some PTO, take some time off of work. If you got to miss a class because your mind is not, but then you got to miss it. You got to chill. You got to tell your friends no. Tell your friends no. Like no is one of the most powerful words that you can speak. It's one of the most powerful words you can speak, because when you say no to other people, you got to say yes to yourself. Say no to others, saying yes to you. So that's what you could do. Self-care is resting. And that could look different for anybody. Sometimes that looks like, I want to curl up and read a book. I want to just binge watch some science fiction. That's what I like to do. I want to do a face routine, whatever it is. Do what makes you feel good and brings your mind and your body at rest. And do it often. Do it often.
I love that. And even in the chat, I see Shanice, and I hope I'm not pronouncing your name incorrectly, but Shanice wrote, boundaries have kept me safe. Yep. Just what you're referring to, setting up those boundaries for ourselves keeps us safe, keeps us healthy, keeps us joyful. It's when we start to, I think, when we start to deny our own boundaries that we start to get into hot water,
Oh yeah. And I've done that. I've been a people pleaser and haven't had good boundaries. Therapy is my friend, let me tell you. If you can get it, go on and get it. I think everybody should, but really thinking about like what that looks like, because of the work I do, I give. And I have not been good with setting boundaries up until really the last few years. I've been getting it together. So it's been good.
I love that. I'm also a recovering people pleaser in my mid 40s now. So I feel like you too.
I'm in 40s, 44.
I'm 45. See, okay, fine. We're slow, but we're getting it. See, anybody who's younger than that, don't feel bad, because Teak and I are just getting there now. Great.
Just got there.
Oh man, that is really funny. So I would love to, we have technically a couple minutes left, but I would love to open it up to, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a couple minutes left. So before we do that, I told you I want to play a quick video.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect timing.
Hold on. Let me do so you can see. Let me unblur my background. All right, this is called A Point of Beauty. This is a collection of short stories from The Moth. So please check it out. My short story is in there about my mom. Here's a snippet. I want to play you a snippet of the story. Here you go.
fourth daughter. I was my mother's fourth daughter. And when I was 15, I sat my mother down and I said, Mommy, I got something to tell you. She said, oh, shit. And I said, Mom, I'm gay. Now, she was shocked, but she became my fiercest ally. And when I moved to New York City, we talked daily. And one day she called me and she said, Tickaboo, why you got to be so mannish? Why can't you be a soft butch like Ellen DeGeneres? Now, as a transgender person, what we know is that we may lose everybody that we thought loved us. And I was scared that I was going to lose her. But a few days before I was to have my top surgery, I called my mother and I said, Mommy, I am having a double mastectomy and chest reconstruction. I'm a man. She said, what the fuck? But on the day of surgery, there she was, Miss Mary at the hospital. And she had this Ralph Lauren robe and a blue teddy bear for me. And afterwards, she cried and she said, I felt like her daughter died. You know, because my transition wasn't just mine alone. And I said, Mommy, I'm still yours. And I think it was in that moment that she started to accept me as her son. And she would call me and she would say, oh, Tickaboo, you'd be so proud of me. I've been practicing my pronouns in your name. You'd be so proud of me. And I said, Mommy, I'm always so proud of you. Now, the years passed and Mom got cancer and it metastasized. And so I rushed to hospice to see her, and she was in and out of consciousness. And my sister was there. And my sister says, here Tika is, here she is. She finally got here. And my mother opened up her eyes and she whispered, he. And that was one of the last words that she spoke. My family had it set up to where she wasn't alone. So we all had a shift and I had the morning shift. And I went in that morning and I climbed in bed with her just like I used to do when I was a little kid. And I put my lips right up to her ear and I said, Mommy, you could go. You've done such a good job raising me, you could go. And I fell asleep. And when I woke up, my champion had died right there in my arms. My mother was my guiding light. And I realized that she was raising me to live in this world without her. And not only am I living, but I am thriving because I am the man that she raised.
All right, so that's my story. That's a snippet of the story that is in this book. So go ahead and check it out, and other great storytellers. And I just like to share that story, not just to cement my mother's legacy, she was so amazing, but that so people can see me as a Black trans man who had a love story. My mother loved me. My father adores me. My family adores me. Everybody isn't necessarily coming from a broken place. Like there are trans stories that are awash in love. And mine is one of those stories. I just wanted to share that.
That's really, really important and beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and when we click off, I'm gonna go order that right away. So thank you for sharing that context. I kind of wish we had listened to that first and built from there. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. So I would love to spend the last, 15 or 20 minutes here opening up the floor to questions either from Amarna and Christian or from anybody else who's present here. If you can speak out loud, great. If you can't speak out loud, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll read it. But I would love to hear from the audience.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. That was so beautiful and so amazing. And I could actually take from what you shared to my own experience in right now, with my sister and her friend who's also transitioning. And I could relate to that story. And it was very beautiful to be able to resonate with it and be able to be like, oh, you know what, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that for me. It's not just coming to me and to this group. I'm also going to share the book with my friends, with my sister, with everybody. Thank you so much.
Please do. Thank you. Thank you.
I do think it is important to remind the world of our we don't all have, I mean, we all have our own traumas in our own ways, of course, but we don't all have this prescribed trauma that you might assume that we have.
Exactly.
And it is important to identify and say, you know, listen, I am a person who was loved and has experienced love and, you know, was
Yeah.
valued for who I am.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely, I mean, it wasn't perfect. You know, it definitely came with its share of hiccups. Definitely came with fun times. I remember my cousin, our little cousin came to me. She could have been no more than like 10. And she was like, Teak, are you gonna grow a penis? Is that what happens now? And I said, yeah, I'm just gonna shift my pelvis to the sky and just water it and see what happens there. Baby
That
cousin.
is really funny.
You know what
I
I'm
love
saying?
the little ones too. They come up with, I remember, Anthony, I see your hand up. I'm gonna, 1 second and then I'm gonna call on you. In college, I babysat for a little girl and, I picked her up at daycare one time and I look, you know, the way I look now, except, you know, 20. And, I remember one of the kids in the class, they were like 3, and one of the kids said, "Is that your daddy?" And she was like, "That's not my daddy, that's my Jan." And I was like, oh, I was like, that's like out of the mouths of babes. Like she knew exactly what that child meant. And she was like, I don't know who this person is, but I know she's mine, you know?
Yeah.
It was such a sweet moment. Anthony, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all these thoughts tonight, Tig. I especially like the reminder to let our students lead. I think that's so important. I also think that it's something we forget all the time as I'm a staff at SPS and faculty. I think we forget that lesson. I like to tell our students that you're in college. This is the time to explore, to try new things. The safest place to fail because that's what the college experience is about. You mentioned something, the privilege of being a New Yorker. And I think you, more than anyone in this space tonight, has the privilege of seeing a lot of queer joy around the country, maybe even internationally. So I wonder if there are any examples of queer joy and resiliency that you've seen outside of the New York City area that you could share with us. I think we also have a sort of view of what the rest of the country looks and acts like, especially when it comes to queer issues, because it's certainly a privilege to live in New York City and be queer today.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah, this as a privilege I think a lot of us don't recognize. You know, when I began my transition, it was so easy because I was here in New York. It was easy to get my name changed. It was easy to start hormones. It was fairly easy to get surgery. You know, I really didn't have a lot of hiccups that people do in other states. But you know, what I find is it's community. And you know, sometimes I go into it biased. Like I was in Nebraska, I don't know, like last year, and I was in Nebraska and I had this bias. I was like, there are no black people here. There are no queer people here. What am I even doing here? You know, I was there for a gig. And I went into this, and I went to this bar and there were all these black queer people there. And anytime I do universities all over the country. And what's most important to Christiane's point is the pride centers. I can't, so important in these, particularly in these little college towns that don't have the access that we do. This is kind of those spaces are really their saving grace. You know, this is the places where they can go and they can be themselves, they can learn from each other, you know, they can create, friendships, romantic partnerships, all of those. So I can't emphasize enough how important these places are on campus. But everywhere I go, there are little pockets of community. We find each other. You know, community is a way that we survive. Now, the unfortunate thing is, you know, their communities, we have their queer communities all over the country, but they're queer communities in states and in towns where they are not supported by the state, you know, where they don't have access to the adequate healthcare, which really sucks, where they, you know, it's hard for them to create families. Like that's just real. You know, that's why like building movements is always so important because there are so many of us all over the country who don't have this access. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I know here in New York City, the Bronx is the poorest borough and has the highest population of Black and brown LGBTQ people. The highest population of Black LGBTQ people, Black and brown LGBTQ people is in the South. And we know all about the South, right? And that is not by mistake. That is not by mistake, right? So just keeping that in mind. But what I see is us building queer community everywhere. We find each other and we build community. And that would be my advice to anybody. And that's what I always tell kids, find the local centers, find the community centers, find the pride centers, find the small organizations that are doing work, like they're doing that hardcore grassroots work, because usually they're the ones who are more nuanced and are actually more empathetic. They're like larger organizations, say like an HRC or even a GLAAD. And I love them both. I work with both of them, right? However, it's more the smaller grassroots organizations and the campus work that really creates safe spaces for us, for our people.
I agree. I really do agree. Let's see, anyone else with your hand up? Now's your chance. Yeah, I've been recently reflecting on, being at this age about, how privileged I have been to have come of age in this particular wave of queer
Yeah.
activism and identity. And obviously in this location, but there's just so much that's different about Gen X or whatever I want to, refer to myself as versus my own teenagers at home who,
Yeah.
are having a completely different experience where gender
Really?
fluidity is the norm,
Yeah.
sexuality fluidity is the norm. They don't feel the need
Yeah.
to box themselves into any
I love,
names, titles.
yeah.
Very curious about how that's going to go.
And it's scaring the hell out of conservative folks and older people. And we see it, right? They're literally trying to legislate this thinking out of existence. The thinking out of existence because they're scared. People are scared of change. People think when we create more space for other people, that takes away space from them. And that comes from people who are used to centering themselves in other people's experiences and how people define each other. And what these young people are saying is you're not going to do that anymore. You're not the center of my experience. You don't get to define me. I get to do it for myself. The kids are going to be just fine. And I love it.
They sure are.
Just fine.
They sure are. It's beautiful. And they teach me, my own children, I mean, teach me so much about my own queer identity without even realizing it, how much I had been boxed in a way, and by choice.
Yeah.
But they're just simply rewriting the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She hasn't gotten
Oh,
yet. But let me tell you one of the profound thing my 6-year-old said to me. She was out on her scooter and she wanted to do, I let my kid do I'll let you do dangerous things, but I'll let you do it carefully because I want you to learn. So she was on the scooter and she's like, I want to go over this big hump and these rocks. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna let you go over these humping rocks, but if you fall, it's gonna hurt. You're not gonna die, but it will hurt. But if you got it, she's like, yeah, I got it. And I said, you're so brave. You know what she said to me? She said, Daddy, for me to be brave, I have to be scared, and I'm not scared. And I said, whew. I said, well,
wow.
do you know what I'm saying? So, and that kind of,
That is so
yeah, that's what
profound.
my baby said that to me. She said, Dad, I'm not scared, so I'm not brave.
I
And
hope you write that down. I hope you write that down.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that so much. Since I'm saying these, it's just there is something in the air about a newer generation, but I think that's every generation, right? Because probably
Very
the
true.
younger generation, the older generation probably said that about us. Us coming to like get these kids in the 80s and the 90s, you know what I'm saying? They're crazy, they're gonna change the world. And we did. And they will too. And I'm here for it.
It's true. I am absolutely here for it. The children shall lead us.
Yeah.
Anybody else? We have a few extra minutes. And I see a lot of thank yous and thankful for the session and that type of thing. I want to make sure you see those too, Teek and Christiane and Amarna, before we log off. I want to make sure you know how appreciated you are and how appreciated your time and wisdom is.
Yeah, this was great. This was fun. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all that you do. Keep up the good fight, keep the faith.
Oh,
Yes, thank you, everybody. Go ahead, Amarna.
I do want to mention that, like you mentioned, TQ mentioned earlier about something specific that you said about opening the doors for like the younger generation to like to change things. I feel like Anthony and Jan, I think DM'd you guys privately, but I want to share as well. I feel like you guys really opened the door with this grant for us to have a space here and for us to like have the Pride Club and for me to like have these experiences. So I'm so happy to like and grateful to share that with you all and to just like show my appreciation again. I always do, but again, to have this space and to like let me as the little like oh my god, the little in high school I was a lesbian and then I was like, no, I think I'm bi. And I was like, I don't know, people will think that like will accept me because I'm I'm a cis bisexual person. I don't think people will accept me. But here in graduate school, like I'm the president of this, I'm not the president anymore, but the founder of this whole like Pride Club. Like you guys were like, yes, yes. do it, do it, do it. And then this grant and like doing this workshop. And it's just, it means so much to me. And hearing your story, Tick, I was like, yeah, we can be like, we can, as we grow into ourselves and like see how we are and like really accept all that we are. And then Christian, you talking about being comfortable. I was like, yes, on all points, everybody. It was so amazing. Thank you, Shanice. Yeah, Shanice is my girl. Like Shanice, yes, she knows the story all too well because I tell her all the time about my own experience. Um, like it was just so amazing to have this opportunity to really like see myself being reflected back onto me. Like we see you, and here you go. Here's a job. Here's a grant. Here's a Pride Club. Like amazing, amazing. So thank you, and thank you, Tick, for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like we need a group hug, group Zoom hug. You know, we are so fortunate to be in this loving community, this joyful queer community. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it and to show it off to our esteemed guests as well. And I thank everybody for being part of this tonight, for being in conversation, for sharing experiences, and I really appreciate everyone's time and effort. And Anthony, thank you so much for being a wonderful partner in the grant and all of the work that we're doing here. And if Teek, would you mind typing? Are you able to access the chat? If you could type the title of the book one more time or a preferred link, just so we have that in the transcript. Point of beauty. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Well,
Yes,
everyone have a
thank you all.
wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Take care.
All right now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.